Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, October 10th. Turned out last live streaming happened to be either Christopher Columbus Day in the United States or Indigenous Persons Day, whatever people are calling it these days. And that explains why there weren't too many people watching. I didn't realize that that was even a day that people would take off, but apparently it was, or at least I can blame my low viewership for that. Also, I was working on a new system and it did not work at all. The web peak system did give a slight 1 second peak when I would press the button, but holding down the button was not doing what I thought it would do, and what actually my recording software was showing what it was doing. So there was literally a miscommunication between my recording software telling me one thing was happening and what the actual video that was going out was telling me. I've also noticed that in doing a crossfade during a live stream, the bitrate just falls to total garbage. So in that 1 second peak, you weren't really seeing anything anyways because the quality of the video was so bad. I've adjusted that and will be using a slightly different system. I was able to develop, let's see, I guess we need to win 3 Dragon or Druid or Rogue things and do the Town Row. I'm a little afraid that we're going to get an announcement for yet another expansion before the end of the year. These expansions have been coming too often. I mean, they help my channel, so I can't really complain about it, but it is also now starting to integrate as part of a thought pattern for me. Is like, maybe I shouldn't bother recording footage as often for November or December, because maybe there will be another drop everything Hearthstone expansion. Let's see, we need to jump into the Druid and Rogue. I'm starting late today because I went to sleep particularly early, slept for 4 hours, woke up, stayed awake until about 6 in the morning, so I went to sleep around 8 in the evening the night before, and we'll just play Druid. Slept for about 4 hours, woke up, I would say, probably then around midnight or maybe 1, stayed awake until about 6, and then I went back to sleep, and then I slept for 12 hours basically and woke up at about 5. So, and then it took me another hour to just get prepared and in any kind of shape to actually stream. I can't really say my decision to go to sleep the second time was wrong, but it certainly didn't work well. I have no idea what this Tavern Brawl is, so let's get rid of this one and see where that takes us. We've got a decent amount of news to talk about, so we need to move.
Job's done.
So what I was able to do is I had mentioned in the previous stream the idea of if my mouse cursor was over on Hearthstone's monitor, so the pixel cursor location is at somewhere between 00 and 1920 and 1080, somewhere in this area, it would just change to Hearthstone as the let's see, it would just turn to Hearthstone, and then that wouldn't be a problem. Now the problem was if I went to the right where my second monitor is, at least virtually, that would immediately change it to the web peak view, which might be a problem if I'm looking at a game and it's one of those low effort sex games that has nudity in the actual setup. So what I was able to do is I thought about it for a second and decided there's a way to do this where it only goes to the web peak view if I move my cursor even further to the right, to the exact edge of the screen. So I've made what is effectively a tiny little 1 pixel wide line region programmed in. And when I move the cursor to that side, now you should be seeing the web peak. And you're seeing this game called Merchant that's 95% positive and 21 user reviews, and looks like a cell phone game because of the black bars, and looks probably not worth playing. Has 62 Steam achievements and is free to play. So this is a game that I would close the tab on. Of course, closing the tab wouldn't be the right move. Now, having moved my mouse cursor now back to this point where Hearthstone is, it should have moved back to Hearthstone. Let me know in the chat if it isn't working, because that is going to be the weirdness of this, is it just this doesn't work. So this allows me to look at everything, decide what games are worth showing off or are safe to show off, and then move on from that point. Of course, this changes the pattern a little bit. Basically what it means is that I need to look at the game and the screenshots, and then I need to scroll back up and decide that this one's safe enough to show off. Let's see. 3 damage randomly split between all enemies. Find the treasure. Fill my hand with coins. I'll do that.
You toast!
Like, is this the time to fill your hand with coins though? Probably not. So we've got this game called The Haunted Graveyard. It suffers from dark screenshot syndrome, and it has a couple screenshots of some very nice zoomed in people, but that's kind of it. It's a VR adventure for all ages, according to the trailer. We're beginning, I imagine, to see horror games. And see, this is almost certainly just rotoscoped images, where, let's see, deal 3 randomly split between all enemies. And then do this. And then I guess we'll do this. 1, 2, 3. Do we need to play a 4?
You take wrong candle.
There we go. So this game, Haunted Graveyard, requires VR. It's 40% off for $5.99. It shows nothing really impressive, and I kind of question the idea of a game for all ages on VR, considering VR is so extremely expensive. Like, all ages, but not all, but not all income ranges. Let's see. Let's moving on. Let's see. We want to eliminate everything. Let's see. Does this guy not get to attack? Minions cost 0 this turn. Alright. How about we do this? We do this. We do this. 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 Oh, I wasn't fast enough. Wasn't fast enough. Alright. So we have this game on Steam called The Great Sea, based on a sci-fi short story by Philip K. Dick. Now, arguably, all of Philip K. Dick's, in my personal opinion, stories actually suck. And they were improved massively by the TV movie producers that took their stories and improved upon them, which is often the case in sci-fi, is to have a large amount of Philip K. Dick things, or a large amount of sci-fi stories in general, just improved in that fashion.
Great news, everyone! The
Okay.
slime is flowing again.
This plus this plus that plus that.
Flowing again.
I'm gonna just squelch this character. So, the Great Sea is apparently a sweeping 30+ minute experience developed on the ground up to push the boundaries of storytelling in VR. We've seen some announcements in VR this week, including Borderlands 2 coming out for PSVR, which we'll talk about later. I kind of think it sucks that oh, how do you put it? It kind of sucks that Borderlands 2 PSVR is coming out for a couple of reasons. One, it makes it less likely that Borderlands 3 is coming out anytime soon, and they're getting new features and they're getting time slowdown mechanics. But in all actuality, the truth is that you kind of needed time slowing down mechanics and a little bit of features to sell somebody playing Borderlands 2 in PSVR, because it's going to be a terrible experience. Having an RPG run and gun shooter turned into a VR experience sounds like a nightmare. And it's a 60-hour game just on the base game, and that's kind of amazing in itself, because I could have sworn I'd spend 100 hours in doing just the baseline game, but I was scheduling it, and I'm like, yeah, really, I've only spent 60 hours in this. So there's definitely factors and issues to take into consideration there of just how that is not the game to put into PlayStation VR. And at least most other VR games that we've seen tend to be short experiences. I wanted to show this Great Sea monster over here. How this is a sci-fi story seems weird. It seems like it's a sci-fi post-society that has turned into some kind of back to feudal times. This is rated teen and it's $5.99. I guess I'm gonna put this game on the following. I do in general like Philip K. Dick stories. I wish that it didn't say it requires a headset, and I was hoping that we'd see a lot more games along that level where developers started to remove the VR mandate from games. You can see this developer has made one other game called The Blasters of the Universe, which is rated very positively, and then the VR Mega Pack is generally overlooked. So it's a developer that's kind of can be trusted. So we're kind of starting early as far as finding something that's slightly interesting. Let's see, the candle. If I do the candle right now, there we go. So yeah, this is a little bit of an awkward new learning curve for me, but it's pretty good.
Everyone.
But I got the victory on that Tavern Brawl, and that's good. We need to get the Tavern Brawls done on all of these. Wait a minute. Why did it didn't show me the cutscene for a reward? It says bosses are back and they brought some new friends. Find out who the new champions are. The reward is already open. Did I just click through it? No, I did not click through it. The game just totally glitched. It's like, alright, game. Remember, on my main account, I only have 2 legendary cards that I need to get. So unless I'm getting a legendary, all 5 of these cards are going to dust. Unless I guess they were gold, and even if they were gold, I'd still turn it into dust. Let's see. So let's see, can I find this quickly? Yes, and disenchant that. We're approaching 1600 dust to get something, one of the 2 legendaries completed. And yeah, it does feel like maybe a couple more weeks I'll have 5,000 gold. Enough to open 50 packs of something for some new expansion that's probably gonna come out. Sticking to this, we need to play combo cards, so let's see if we have any combo cards in the rogue deck. Death Rattle, Rogue. If we don't, I'd have to come out here and replace them. So we have, as our next game, WWE 2K19. It's rated mostly positive, 73% of 101 user reviews. Wow, those graphics look better than what I was really expecting, to be fair. The problem with the WWE games and 2K Entertainment in general, and this might fall right into Borderlands 3 as a thought, is because Borderlands 3, this is a trailer, this might get copyright claimed. You got Stephanie McMahon, I think that's who's fighting. It's been a long time since I've been big into wrestling. Let's come over here for a second. Combo, don't see any combo cards. 2K just kind of puts out the wrestling games because they know they will sell. They don't put a lot of effort into them. WWE 2K19 is $59.99 unless you want the digital deluxe version, which is $69.99. I think for wrestling games there needs to be a new thought on the whole process. Like, it's been a very stale concept that has just gotten played over and over again. I assume that's definitely, and it may not be. But yeah, a ground up new design from a different company would be interesting. The fact that 2K puts out these kind of games makes you kind of wonder, maybe they're not funding Borderlands 3 enough for Gearbox to really finish it. The initial thought would be, yes, it's Gearbox that's distracted or just slow, and that they're not making they're not making the game fast enough. But when you look at 2K, who owns the license to Borderlands, they have WWE 2K19, NBA 2K19, Golf Club 2019. That's not a lot of things that have come out this year. And I remember at the E3 presentation that they really didn't have a lot of games to announce, and they seemed like they really didn't care to announce any more games. Interesting. This card will work pretty nicely with this card. When you look at what 2K released or published in 2017, they have Army Men 2, Army Men Real-Time Strategy, Army Men Toys in Space. Those look like old games. Hidden and Dangerous, WWE 2K18. It's the next page. NBA 2K18, and then WWE 2K17, NBA 2K VR Experience, Carnival Games VR came out in 2016, Sid Meier's Civilization came out in 2016, Mafia 3 came out in 2016. So it's been since like 2016 that they have had a list of even regular games coming out. BioShock Remastered came out, BioShock 1 and 2 Remastered came out in 2016. They put out Battleborn on Steam on 2016 for Gearbox. So yeah, it maybe 2K is the problem. Maybe they don't have money. Maybe that's why Borderlands 3 is having trouble coming out. Let's see. Tragic Master says, "Good luck with the pack. Little giant pack. Great value. Giant value." Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Evasion, which is 64% positive, 14 user reviews already. Looks like it's a nicely polished run and gun style Halo clone game. I heard Giant Bomb, they were talking in one of their podcasts, their after show podcast, about how they felt Destiny was where Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3 should go, which is something I certainly haven't ever thought about. This seems like this is a shooting game where you shoot your own friends to keep them powered. The problem with a lot of the games like this, well, this looks fine. I'm not sure if this developer has any clout, and clearly the reviews are not great. It says it's single player, but it's probably not. It's probably 99.9% online multiplayer. 45 achievements isn't too high, but it requires virtual reality, so that's going to be a problem. And then it's 10% off for $35. Here, I need to play quickly. I have to be careful here. So let's see. Let's see what's one of the complaints of Evasion is. Good game, but lacks content. There are only 4 guns. I've expected some RPG elements, but it's just arcade shoot 'em up. I'm 30 minutes in and I'm already finished 2 or 3 chapters of a total of 9. The campaign lasts approximately 2 to 3 hours. if you're not dying constantly in co-op game, it's quite easy. The game has potential. Just add more unlockable guns and classes. That seems like an odd, not too bad of a complaint, but the VR and the high price for a VR game knocks it out of the park for me.
My shield for Argon.
Like, this is
Have a taste.
evasions. Even though it looks pretty, doesn't seem like it's doing it. The other game this developer's made is one called Waddle Home, which is a VR game that's 100% positive with 22 users, but it came out in 2016, so clearly 22 users willing to review your game over the course of 2 years is not impressive. We have a GameIndustry.biz article. The game industry contributes £2.87 billion to the UK economy. It supports nearly 50,000 jobs. 2016 Screen Industries reports also shows every £1 invested via tax relief adds £4 to the economy. Of course, these are reports designed to say something like that. You're never going to hear a report that gets funded that says for every £1 relief of tax relief you get, it costs the UK citizens £4 in income. And it's kind of hard to make that argument because it would be done in such ways that potentially you're underpaying your employees, but you're still paying your employees. So it's real hard to say for every one McDonald's job that pays minimum wage, you're cutting out that employee from working at a regular job, a regular restaurant job where they would have a base salary of like $10 an hour, and it's hard to prove something like that. But in general, if I can be just the smallest of industry shills, I think this article is the right way. If you believe the video game industry is good for the world at all, if you believe video games are good for the world at all, and thus the video game industry needs to exist because we don't want to see 100% independent development by one person. We'd never get the great games that a lot of people play only. There's still room to need things like Call of Duty and Destiny, even if personally you don't like it.
Job's done.
So if you think the game industry, which you kind of have to admit, yeah, the game industry should exist and is a net positive, then articles that say it's a net positive is something in line with something you should consider, if not be slightly critical of, but not completely dismissive of. That felt like I was rambling. Probably because I was. Let's see, next game we have on Steam is called Super Commander XL. This is a low effort, low polygon game that's probably an asset flip. When you look at like the trees and the railway stations and the houses, these don't feel like they are all from the same game. Very standard, solid colored backgrounds with lack of textures, really. Generic shape potholes. This feels like it's supposed to be some kind of yeah, it's a simulation of pseudo-historical events, like so North versus South type thing. 99 cents. The reason there's nothing there that implies to me it should be called Super Commander XL. there was at one time I'm running out of time. There was an NES game called North vs. South that was slightly interesting. I remember renting it when I was a kid, but I think probably over the course of time from when I was a kid to now, and frankly even when I was a kid, having an entire game talking about the American Civil War and turning it into a game is probably not super necessary or helpful. Civil War was a while back for the United States' history. There's been a lot of other wars that have been mostly forgotten. It's time for us to move forward, I would say, and let it go.
My shield for Argus.
Let's see.
Give that minion a turn to get ready.
I guess I could hit that, but I don't think that would help. Super Commander XL just looks like a boring game. Like, in general. Let's see. What's this next game? It's called Nev Sky Run. Nev Sky Run. Is this a VR game, or... I'm seeing a trailer of things. Looks like it's something, but seems to be a slight difference in quality. Yeah. Wow. So the trailer just dropped off the edge into a troll game. Interesting. And none of these screenshots, even for a second, show any indication of a troll game, but they do show a lot of light bloom. It's not until you get to the second section that you realize it is. It's a Russian only game, so if you ever wondered why I'm always iffy of Russian games, here's the reason. Early access, English language not supported, $1.99 with no discount. Yeah. I guess maybe that's Nevsky. That's maybe how that's pronounced. Okay. So we have an issue where we need to play combo cards. And we need to defeat a dungeon run boss. 3 dungeon run bosses. Let's see if we could do that. Let's see. Money. Puzzle Lab, no. Dungeon run. Okay. If I stick with this dungeon run, I will probably not play any combo cards because I'm playing a hunter. But maybe that's alright. So we'll just stick with this, and then that will give me some time to get used to the switching back and forth mechanic.
Rexa versus Elder Yari.
I don't think I've ever seen this enemy before.
Let the hunt begin.
Spirits of old,
I'm
call upon
still
you.
looking for feedback, I guess now new feedback on the new way that the web peek feature works, whether it's a distraction or whether it helps any, put some visualness to what I'm talking about. Was it perhaps better for me to just talk about the games and not try and show them all? It does help me a little bit to not have to press a button and hold a button,
Fight without fear.
and instead just move the mouse cursor all the way to the edge. Of course, That means if I drop the mouse, which I eventually will, it'll probably switch over. But it should fix itself as soon as I get back to Hearthstone, so it's kind of this always reassessing, refix, correcting issue. So next game we have on Steam is called Achievement Collector Space. Anything with Achievement Collector you know is an Achievement Collector game and not worth it. It has 90 Steam achievements. So the limitation of 100 or 90 or whatever the limitation is not really stopping all Achievement Collector games from coming out. It's stopping some, certainly. This game is $19.99 with no discount. That is an easy game to close. Even by the name, you didn't even have to look at it. You knew it was an achievement low effort game. Let's see. Is this one? Here we have a English and simplified Chinese VR game called a bunch of Chinese words and then there are symbols of VR2 Sangu Warriors VR2. It's probably just Sangu Warriors VR2 written twice. A lot of Chinese games that go into the Chinese history or historical look very similar. They sometimes look very good, but they're they really don't go into the fantasy or sci-fi or anything else. It's just always history. Which is to say, a lot of Chinese games are just not imaginative at all. And when you get into the bigger argument that Chinese steal copyrighted stuff from people all the time and make cheap Chinese knockoffs, yeah, there's a lack of imagination, and I think it's because of how their Chinese people are educated and raised, is that they just don't have time or energy to think up something new. This is a VR game, which makes it also impossible to buy, even if you wanted to. It's 40% off for $17.99. You can buy it, certainly, but it makes it a lot more difficult to decide to buy a game like that, knowing you're going to also have to already own a VR headset. In all honesty, Sangu Warriors is not even a bad quality Chinese game. We'll start seeing a lot worse ones. It's just a average quality VR games, which all average VR games tend to run into the same problem of just not being very good. Next we have a game on Steam called Tinker Garage, which is a racing game, driving and shooting, it seems, on kind of an open world arena, less than a racetrack, which would be interesting. Honestly, this is probably an asset flip game. Like, they've gotten so good and so pretty lately, but really this probably is just different terrains that are asset flipped with a couple of cars. It looks like something that has had a little bit of work in it to change it from being a cell phone game, but when you see like a gear like this, that's something that surely you would expect from an Android game, not a regular PC. The UI is not terrible. Seems like it's got some kind of mini game, like copying the popular racing car game where you play soccer with the cars. But I don't think so. This is early access and free to play. That says something. But it's the only game from this developer too. So why would you want to play this game instead of, say, Rocket League or some game made by some developers that will get some traction. Since at best this is a racing / Rocket League game, and it doesn't seem like there's actually any racing in the game. It seems like it's car versus car. It says single player and online multiplayer, but I imagine to have any real interaction you have to play online. I bet there's no AI bots in it at all for as few cars as I've seen. Right. This. So another game eliminated. Let's see. And see, because I'm playing a single player game, I'll just never get the rope, so I can take as much time as I want to play this. That music sounded funky. Next we have a game called Cineris Somnia. Good news is I don't have to spell things anymore if I'm showing the videos. Cineris Somnia is published by AG and Playism. I know that developer somewhat. It's positive, 88% of 17 user reviews. It's tagged as a walking simulator female protagonist. So what I imagine this is we've started to see more of this, where what looks like a Japanese animation company has stepped in and they've decided to make a 3D interactive experience more than a game. And that's what I'm guessing this is. And the graphics don't look really great in that screenshot. There's definitely a lack of texture here, or a lack of polish. This looks like something that maybe was originally slated to come out for like a Vita. I could totally see this being a Vita game that they decided to bring to PC. And it's going with a slightly different art style. It's English and Japanese. It's not going with what is the standard anime art style. It's going slightly off of that. 10% for $13.44. This is probably a slightly more interesting, to me at least, walking simulator game than, say, so many walking simulators where you don't ever see any other humans, which happens quite a lot. The developer that made this game hasn't done anything, but the publisher does have at least a little bit of name recognition to me. The La Mulana, for example, too, is by them. Let's see, and if you want to see the quality on some of these games, you'd have to hover over them. These aren't amazingly well-known games. Yumi Nikki Dream Diary. You definitely put AG Playism as a third-tier publisher, but better than an indie publisher still. So this is a game that will make it to my watch list, but the price is pretty high. 10% off for $13.49 for a walking sim, something that's probably 30 minutes at most. And it's tagged with female protagonist too. The price is definitely high on that. Destroy random enemy minion. Do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. Do my turn. I'm gonna have to get really, really good at speeding up the process. Yeah, because I'm taking way too long to cover all of these games. And really ignoring Hearthstone completely. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam that's clearly a troll game, Get to a Gun. This is clearly just an asset flip PUBG style ripoff game. It looks horrible. Watching all of these trailers is not something I do normally, so I'll skip. You'll see me skip to them. Like, just bad UI, bad textures on everything, bad character designs. In all honesty, if we wanted to see less asset flips, we probably should see some curation in the Unity and the Unreal asset stores themselves and hit the source there. The fact that there are bad quality assets for sale or for free out there to be used with Unity and Unreal is weird and wrong, but I don't know how you fix that. Get to a Gun here is 10% off for $4.49. That's just a laughably high amount of money that they are asking for.
Warriors of the frozen waste.
Let's see. Played that totally wrong. Komatsu has an article. Sony's president on the PS4 successor, quote, "It's necessary to have a next-gen hardware," end quote. Have a next-gen hardware. I suppose that would... That's believable that... that you would say it that way. Early indicators report claim future PlayStation is not a major departure. Yeah, I imagine what the PS5 is going to be, to not really go further in this article, which is only probably 30 sentences, or well, not 30 sentences, probably 15. I imagine at the very least they want to be better in quality than the current Xbox One X. They want to have more RAM, more teraflops, more everything that you could possibly have in that case. Just so everything on the spec sheet that they show looks like they're the better hardware. Of course, then the Xbox 2 will come out and trump that, and that's just in general how that's going. We're in a weird position because if the PlayStation 5 is in development, it can probably not do as much as you would like as far as ray tracing, unless they were given some secret heads up about ray tracing 6 months ago, which maybe they were. So there definitely is a case to be made that the Xbox 2 might be better at running a 2080 NVIDIA GPU style graphics card and doing ray tracing. And if the Xbox 2 has a ray tracing and the PlayStation 5 doesn't, then that is going to be a argument point that is spoken many times against the PlayStation 5. Faster RAM, more storage. Both the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One still really not giving you a ton of storage or storage options. You basically need an extra hard drive slot in both consoles. Like, by default, there's a terabyte in there, on top of there being somewhere around 128 gigabytes of 128 gigabytes of SSD of some sort. Let's see how this works. There you go. Destroy all damaged minions. I'll try that next turn, why not? So yeah, a secondary full-size hard drive slot where you can just have people just go buy a SATA hard drive and plug it in, just like a real computer. No special caddy really needed and nothing like that. The consoles don't need to come with that, but it is where I think where they should go with it. Alright. Can I win here? That's an interesting question. What else does the PlayStation 5 need? Not really a lot, just faster processor, same style processor, still a 8086 style processor. Nothing special, just more RAM, more storage, faster internet connections maybe. I'm not 100% sure if there's a gigabit network connection connected, capable of being plugged into the back of a PlayStation 4. Maybe you get some USB-C and HDMI 4K connectors and just general updates like that. Better power management, better cooling. But also, you really can't go as crazy as you would like, because then the price of the PlayStation 5 will just be too expensive. You definitely are not at the point where... Interesting, it felt like that guy conceded. That couldn't have been the case. He must have drawn himself to death. Because I'm playing solo play, and that would not make any sense that the AI would concede. Yeah, you can't get rid of the drive. You're not going to integrate like the PlayStation Eye or anything into the console. That's still going to be a secondary thing. No PlayStation VR. I don't, unless they do something crazy with the controller, it'll probably be exactly the same controllers. In a lot of ways, it might very well be the case that the PlayStation 5 is upgrading just to compete with Nintendo more than even the Xbox, just because Nintendo is rumored to make a new Switch hardware. Sony may feel the need to make a new device to compete in their own minds, although really there's no competition there. Next game we have on Steam is called The Mummy Pharaoh, which is interesting looking. Again, this might all be asset flips. Like, it looks a little bit better thought out and placed, but when you have mostly just desert, that's easy enough to do. And look at this frame rate that this video is playing at. It is slow and clunky. And this looks like a pretty bad interface here as far as items. And it looks like it's just a run and gun shooter. And this is the type of game that were running on Windows 95 when Windows 95 came out. That this would be considered a decent game and interesting to look at. But in 2018, this is not to a level of quality that would be acceptable. When we skip over, we see a shrouded in dust mummy enemy, but I think most of these screenshots aren't even going to bother to show you enemies, which is often a problem when you can recognize in bad games, is that they refuse to show you the characters you're playing as or the enemies you're playing against. And I do believe they have designed these statues to pee out toxic gas. So I mean, you don't inherently, I wouldn't say that this is a troll game as much as just an incredibly bad quality game for 10% off for $1.79. And it keeps going back to the question about what games deserve to be sold on Steam and what games should be on something like itch.io. Yeah, this developer has made some other things, but as I'm hovering over them, here's one that has mixed reviews with 12 reviews. The rest of them don't even have any reviews. So they're, I wouldn't say particularly flooding Steam, but they're on definitely a path where they're releasing one every couple months, every month or so. They're releasing some cheap game to Steam in hopes of making money. And who knows if they really do make any money from that. If I had more time, which is the cry of the YouTuber always, I would say, is if only I had more time, I'd do this, this, and this. If I had more time, though, I would go through all of these game listings and potentially leave most of the bad games off the list, or I'd at least consider doing that. It really comes down to how much news do I really want to report, because every game getting listed technically is news and is showing, I'm trying my best to show a true and accurate listing of what comes out, whereas if I start moving it to a curated experience, then it stops being a complete and accurate account and starts becoming something that's more pick and choose. And at a certain level, then you just become like so many mainstream video game review sites that are barely review sites anymore, that only talk about the one AAA game that comes out in a month, and all other games that are part of the game industry, whether you want them to be or not, are left to never be known about. So even though that so many of these games are low quality, I still feel like it's informative to talk about them. However, on the other hand, I also don't want to become like Jim Sterling, who's just kind of creating drama via finding the worst of the worst games. Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is called Where's Baby? It looks like it's a troll game. It's a baby werewolf running around. To be fair, this animation style looks like it's handmade. That says something. Feels like somebody, even though they may have had a silly idea here, I don't think you just asset flipped a baby werewolf or any of this. A lot of this animation's not particularly great. it seems like what you're doing is you have either a timer or a health bar, and you're supposed to run around and break things. Let's see. It's an asymmetrical multiplayer game with setting the baby against what is that? What it was a kid for me. So it's apparently not really single player. It seems like, or maybe you can play it in single player, but they try. You play as an adult trying to fix things, and the baby is trying to make a mess. Which this is similar. It's a 2D style of Who's Your Daddy, which was popular for a brief second as a streamer game. This is early access online, 33% off for $2. Not asking too much there. I'm not sure I'd particularly want to play it. The only other game they've developed came out in May 9th, 2017 and never got any user reviews from the looks of it. Where's Baby? Is it called Where's Baby? Yeah, as in a werewolf baby. It's a silly idea, certainly. For a game, unfortunately, I don't think it brings it to the level of an entertaining experience. In a lot of ways, the Friday the 13th game where one person played as Jason Voorhees and everybody else ran around trying to escape Jason Voorhees, even that didn't, even though it had a ton of polish on it, even that didn't really look like something that I was really interested in as far as actually having any experience with. Alright, let's do this. Let's see. Let's see. This will have to be our last game because we've gone an hour already. Gamasutra has an article. Smash Brothers director played what you hate to make games great. It's an interesting idea, certainly. I know that there are certainly people out there that hate video games in general, so if I was to apply that to people who hate video games and say, hey, play what you hate, that would be something interesting, although probably not helpful, really. In general speak, if people hate video games, you're going to have to get them to like video games before they would be willing to play something that they completely 100% despise. But as for game developers, I think there's some logic to that. When you want to be a professional at something and there's one part that you know you're not experienced in or you don't appreciate, those would be the blind spots that you would want to fill in. It does get down to a weird exposure therapy type of thinking, though. If somebody hates horror games and they play a bunch of horror games, I'm not 100% sure that means that they will love horror games after that or learn anything from it. And as a video game critic, I often, even myself, feel like I sound like I'm hating games when I actually do love games. I'm just criticizing them, so saying the positives of them makes very little sense. So personally, I wouldn't really describe what I'm doing as playing what I hate. Let's see.
Job's done.
Darn it. Let's see. The quote here from this is Masahiro Sakurai that they interviewed is, quote, "I went out of my way to play games I didn't like or find interesting. Those ended up being a lot more informative to me. Explained at home, I have literally thousands of games and I think of them as pearls of wisdom from my predecessors."
Job's done.
And then there's another quote, "Game development is very difficult. Nobody sets out to create a game that's not fun. It's all of the challenge and difficulties that happen throughout the development that determine whether a game is a failure or a success. I think playing those thousands of games is the single best and easiest way to learn from my predecessors." So that's interesting couple of quotes there. I spent yesterday, as I was scheduling videos, so I was actually working at the same time, listening to an hour-long review of Final Fantasy 15, and in all honesty, it convinced me that I probably don't want to play Final Fantasy 15 ever. It describes Final Fantasy 15 as a mediocre disappointment. It talks about how the entirety of the game is designed to not really have any story in it, and instead the experience and story is done throughout like YouTube animations and Kingsglaive, and it talks about how
when adventurer dies, Cobalt King is getting all the loot.
How some of the concepts and artistic design doesn't really make sense in Final Fantasy 15. In general, all the cities don't have fences or walls, and yet right next to all the cities are these wandering monsters that are constantly trying to kill you and everyone around. And why is nobody except for the main people wearing armor when they're theoretically under constant threat of being attacked? I could go on, certainly, and I haven't played Final Fantasy 15 myself, but it does seem like probably there was big problems in the development of 15, and it's not the Final Fantasy for me. I think almost certainly if I was going to play a Final Fantasy, it would come down to either Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 13. Probably 13 would be most people's recommendation. Well, we're getting the news slowly taken care of, but not really very fast on that. Today was definitely not the day to sleep in late and start late. As far as daily quests, I need to get at least one of these done. And then I suppose I could maybe have, I don't know, like a special stream on Thursday. I doubt I'd do that, but that could be something that could happen. But at the very little bit, I need to get this done. At least one of them. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.